Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. What a day, huh? Quite a bit of a tricky scenario coming into the charts this afternoon. We've had some interesting news from JP Morgan that banks are going to have a problem with their earnings. Well, granted, the majority of financial stocks are trading way above their moving averages. You should see financial ETFs like they have been smacking the gains year to date. So you could naturally assume that there's going to be a bit of a correction coming into play. But usually what happens, guys, is when interest rates are being risen, okay? Don't even know if I'm using the correct terminology there. If interest rates are rising, financial stocks will always do their best, okay? Because they're the ones that are going to reap the benefit from the consumer paying back the money that they've borrowed from the bank. So the interest rate is higher. That looks good on their earnings. Now, if you recall, a couple of quarters ago, JP Morgan and the rest of the gang, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they were all like, yeah, man, our earnings are doing pretty well right now. Now, even though inflation has come down and we're seeing a slowdown in the manufacturing sector, a lot of banks right now are sat on a lot of unrealized losses. Now, I've been keeping you guys in the loop about financial stocks, and whenever there's going to be an interest rate cut, financial stocks take a smack across the face. And we're going to be diving into that very, very shortly to help you guys understand that logic. We got a big night tonight. It's the debate. Now, it's not going to be like the Biden and Trump debate. I think Harris is going to give as good as she gets, you know? And Trump's going to do his good old shoot from the hip kind of story. I think they're both equally prepared for each other. So it's going to be a very interesting debate. I want to watch it, but I'm going to be flat as a pancake. So I'm just going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to see the charts and we're going to know if it's a good thing or not, because that's what investors are waiting for this evening. They're waiting to see what it's going to look like if Trump does show dominance or does Harris show dominance. It's all going to be, I mean, I don't expect Trump to hesitate. I don't think that's going to happen. The first one that hesitates loses, ladies and gentlemen. That's the rule. In tonight's live stream, I'm going to be diving into a couple of things that I think are going to serve you all. We're going to pay attention to what Bitcoin's been getting up to. I mean, Bitcoin, it's not really done that much, to be fair. Hasn't really moved up aggressively, but nonetheless, it has moved up across the board with the stock market. Well, happy days. And an analyst has turned around, well, actually not an analyst, a CEO has turned around and said that stop knocking the ETF because a lot of investors are stepping into the ETF and it's the most that any ETF has seen in history in terms of investor wanting to take it on kind of thing. But then again, it's the only cryptocurrency that's an ETF. So naturally, you're going to be saying that. But regardless of that, I'm going to break down a trade that I took today on the NASDAQ. It was one trade. I was going to trade my personal account, but I came to the charts and I saw NASDAQ making a move to the downside. Then it started to chop around on the VWAP, and I was like, oh, I can't be bothered to sit and watch this. Then I saw something, which is something that I talk about with the Platinum members, and it's part of the checklist that we've got going over there. And I'm going to break that down to you guys so you can understand my thought process when I'm looking for V-shaped reversals. That's effectively price drops, there's the blood, and then it just reverses back up again. All right. So let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good afternoon. Yes, well. I know it's a well. It's not really a well. Tomorrow's going to be a well, because a lot of people are betting that inflation is going to be going in the Fed-friendly path. What does that mean? Well, it means that the Fed cutting or aggressively increasing interest rates has managed to successfully get inflation down. You are aware, ladies and gentlemen, that if inflation ticks up, we have a big problem. Ticks up. They're projecting 2.6%. If it comes in at 2.7, the margin for error is so small. That 2.7 will give the markets a smackaroo across the face. I hope that's not the case, ladies and gentlemen. But when you weigh up the options, Manufacturing sector, 5 months, contracting. What do you think manufacturers are going to be doing? They ain't going to keep the same prices, are they? They're naturally going to be increasing them just to keep up to date with things and keep afloat. Oil is down, but is that being priced in? So let's get with the program, ladies and gentlemen. Mad love for passing through this evening, and happy birthday to anyone's birthday. I've been told to say happy birthday to just anyone whose birthday it is. If it's your birthday and you're in this live stream, well done. You got yourself a free happy birthday. Cool. Let's get with the program, ladies. What the hell? Bring that here. Happy days. Let's get with the program. All right, and so earlier on, JP Morgan put out that things ain't looking good, bruv. We know that already. And I will always laugh at this chart right here because this is how much money banks are losing. All right. Banks' investment securities are to the sum of nearly $512 billion in losses. Some of them are still holding them and they're going to hold until maturity. And others are actually trying to get rid of those assets. They ain't seeing no flavor. Nothing is making money right now for the banks. And that is a sad story. Given that Goldman Sachs come out today and say, look, like they're down nearly $400 million. Their trading turnover is now down 10% because the environment itself is very difficult for people to be trading in. It's not looking good, man. But we've been covering this story for quite some time, and now it's all starting to come out of the woodworks. First Goldman Sachs, now JP Morgan. I mean, JP Morgan took a smack today. Let's just go over and have a look at the financial stocks themselves. So, JPM. Where's JPM at? Come on, hurry up. Hate this when it does this to me all the time. JP Morgan comes out today and says that we've got a bit of a problem with their financials in terms of revenues going into the future. And you can see they just took a smack to the downside, $205 a share right now, with a high of today at around 218. So, yeah, they took a beating today. Lots of volume coming to action to suggest that they are actually getting rid of these shares. Now, remember, let me just draw your attention. This is JP Morgan, okay? They're declaring a little bit of a loss. Go over to Barclays. How have Barclays been faring? They didn't like it either. So they're down down 0.35%. Who else we got? Goldman Sachs. They didn't like it either. They're down as well. Okay. And then you've got Bank of New York. Okay, well, they're actually up. Okay, so not bad for them, doing well. And then you've got Deutsche Bank as well. They're down as well. And then your Royal Bank of Canada, they are actually going higher. Okay, now what we got to understand is, how do financials fare during certain market times? All right, so just check this out. In front of you is financial stocks performing above moving averages. Okay. And you can see that since when? Well, 30th of August, they've topped out and they've started to pull back. Now, usually when this green, blue, and yellow lines are trading above the 50% point on this chart right here, which is this dotted line, it tells us that there's a lot of financial stocks that are trading way above average. All right. And you can see they're starting to pull back. And today's news kind of got them scared. But they're not really going to come out with too much information. But you can get that access to that information, because that right there is $512 billion worth of losses. So where am I going with this? What you've got to understand is ETFs across the board. You can see here, financial ETFs. Look at how they've been performing year-to-date return. Okay. They're not doing too bad. All right. Now, the idea is that let's make the assumption that they've made their money right now, given that they have been performing pretty well. The chart shows it, that they've been trading nearly at the top band of around 95% of them being above moving averages, suggesting that there is movement and it's higher. But we're now going into a change in monetary policy. We've got the concern of inflation. Now, tomorrow's inflation data is going to be a mover. And it's all happening before the market opens. September the 11th, they're going to be releasing the year-on-year inflation data, and that's going to be a bit of a problem for us. Now, again, back to what we spoke about earlier on, Bridgewater and Associates. Look at this. Financial services. Good old Ray Dalio ain't getting caught up in that madness with the stocks of financial services. Look how much his portfolio is weighted with financial stocks. Not that much. He's skewed towards recession-proof stocks. Healthcare, 14%. Consumer cyclical, it's not really yet, about 12%, but the bigger daddy right here is consumer defensive, all right? So his portfolio is already skewed towards more defense-based stocks and healthcare. That's good news. Why? Because he's going to be covered on the event of maybe a downturn in the stock market. And it's already coming into fruition, ladies and gentlemen. So you got to be very careful with what you're doing with your portfolios. Going into the article, it does talk about how Tesla managed to get a little bit of a re-up on a price call in the sense where they're expecting it to move higher. It's going over to Tesla itself. We can see where you at. Tesla got a nice little flavorsome move to the upside. Vector candle recovery coming into play, and the hybrid system works for absolutely everything and anything. It's only going to go back into that red vector candle region. So going into the close, we've got ourselves a little bit of a gap up. But of course, with the presidential debate that's happening this evening, ladies and gentlemen, just remember, that's going to be aired at around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. UK time, which should be around 9 p.m. your time, New York. So that's when the Asian session will be open. The dollar and the dollar index and gold will be accessible to be trading, and so will the futures markets. Now, that leads me on to what we had today. I'm going to get into it, and then I'm going to talk about Bitcoin price action very, very shortly. So, firstly, NASDAQ. Right, so you can see what happened with NASDAQ today. It has been quite a treacherous... This is where I said, right, I'm not going to trade my personal account today. I'm going to just take a stab on my funded account. All right, it's free money, so I might as well just play it on there. So I took one trade today, okay? Now, let me just show you where my head's at with that. So this is what we did. So this is on my ultra wide, and I've got XO charts running like so. And we took a trade today on our funded account. We started off with 250,000. We've made 10K profit on there. And today's profit was $4,700. 2 contracts, ladies and gentlemen. $4,700, 2 contracts. Who says you need size? You know, that's not a bad day. And here we go. 2 contracts, happy days. Phil, 1 contract, 2 contracts. Just like that. Okay. It cost me $6, not even $7, $8 nearly. $8 to clear 4,700. It was just one trade. And I'm going to show you exactly what we took advantage of. This is the V-shaped reversal. Okay. Now, there is always going to be V-shaped reversals that happen everywhere, even in Bitcoin. Over the weekend, I created a checklist, okay? And the checklist was the V-shaped reversal checklist. And it just gives the guys in the Platinum membership an opportunity to have a checklist and refer to something that will help them understand what is likely going to happen if the criteria presents itself. And here is the checklist as an example, okay? But the same criteria is coming into play with what my trade was today. So just look at this image here. You've got movement to the downside. You've got red vector candle blocks right here. I see a green vector candle right here. Now, at the time with this actual setup here, it was before a news announcement, okay? But we didn't have any news announcements today. So what was I looking for with NASDAQ? So I went over to NASDAQ and I could see on the 30-second time frame, here was my entry point. Get the image back up just to show you. My entry point was 18,659 and our exit was 18,776, okay? Now, go into it. There was my entry point, 18,659, and my exit was 18,777. What do you think my criteria was? Or actually, by the principle of the checklist, what do you think I was looking for? I was looking for vector candle recovery. I took the trade on the principle of the first green vector candles above the 50 EMA. That's where that vector was on the 30-second time frame. Okay? Now look at my environment. I've got red vector candles that they can come back into. What's going on here? They're buying. Price is dropping. Okay? I took the trade on that logic. Well, it was afterwards because I needed confirmation. Price had got above the 50 EMA. There's a red vector candle. So at minimum, even if they were to turn behind, I could have grabbed myself about 5-6 ticks profit maybe. Okay? But what they done was they showed persistence and then they made the move to the upside. what was going on Bitcoin at this time. Go over to BTC. Now, earlier on today, we had two projections with Bitcoin, okay? The first projection was, this on the 5-minute time frame. The first projection that we did today was on, it was today straight after the New York live, okay? And sorry, not the first one. This was the second one. So we had two projections in principle. So the first one being this one right here, where we said that as long as Bitcoin can stay within these ranges, whichever one they go for is the one that we're going to look to trade, okay? So Bitcoin did come down, and we were expecting that move to come down straight after the New York session because Bitcoin wasn't really doing too much. They started to make the move lower. And I said to everybody in the Platinum, just be mindful that they could sweep lower and initiate a reversal back up, okay? And that ended up coming into play today with Bitcoin because that's what they did. They came lower, but they didn't break the Asian session low. So if you were to wait on the logic of the Asian session getting swept and you were going to run shorts from that point, it didn't happen. But what they did was they made the reversal and then moved price to the upside. Now look at the difference between a V-shaped reversal in Bitcoin and a V-shaped reversal in NASDAQ. It's so much more clearer on NASDAQ, isn't it? So much more clearer. That's why I trade NASDAQ. I mean, look, 5-minute time frame, violet vector candles by the principle of the checklist right here. We're looking for that logic, okay? And that's why I will trade NASDAQ, because it will always give me the volatility. We had bad news about JP Morgan. When they pumped out that information, the market started to sell off, mainly banks. But then the market recuperated and then made the reversal back up. Did I leave some on the table? Of course I did. But I don't know it's going to continue to the upside. I could have looked at it and said they may have gone towards the actual high of the Brinks box, but I'm not interested in that. $4,700. And if we're complaining about that, then why trade in the first place? If you're not going to take money off the table, that's the whole point. All right. But that's what I look for when I'm trading, ladies and gentlemen. And don't tell me that you haven't seen this before, because this is always happening. It always happens in the chart. Okay. And that's what we look for in the New York session. Now, Bitcoin did well today. We saw the movement up. We then go into Ethereum. We wanted to see the same thing with Ethereum. Now, Ethereum did come back down. So if we go over to Ethereum just for a split second, we can see that ETH did make the move down, similar to Bitcoin. She swept the Asian session, which is what I wanted them to do. And I wanted to see if they could hold above the psychological high. And they did. And then they made the nice sharp reversal to the upside. And they effectively hit our target, 2,400. No, they didn't take. No, look at that, man. They just missed it by $5. All right. So there or thereabouts. So that's why you got to pay yourselves, because they pull this flavor right here. All right. Always take money out of the charts, man, because you're just going to end up leaving money on there, and then you're going to get burnt, and then you're going to be wondering why you're not making money when you're getting the right calls. Okay. So with that being said, what can we expect going into crypto overall? Well, look, given that we've got Kamala talking later on, Bitcoin has fared very, very well in today's candle. And this is good news for us. Let me just get rid of all this. Now, the question is, what happens if tonight's debate doesn't work out favorably? Well, it's all down to this logic. The market is going to be listening in to see who has the strength. Now, is that going to be an impactful thing for Bitcoin? Well, let's just look at it like this. Are people buying Bitcoin? Yeah, they are. According to Bitwise CIO, he says that the Bitcoin ETF has got mad amount of people getting involved in it. Go into it, and he put out a tweet saying, Jim is wrong here. Investment advisors are adopting Bitcoin ETFs faster than any ETF in history. That's any ETF in history. Says, let's look at its own data focused on IBIT, the BlackRock ETF. Per his table, IBIT has attracted 1.45 billion in net flows from investment advisors. He calls this small. Okay, then. So we just look at that on X itself, and you can see bright as day that we have got pretty much, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of flavor. Investment advisors, there's lots of activity happening right there. Okay. So the idea is Bitcoin really getting ready to make a move to the upside? Well, data tomorrow is going to give us that logic. If CPI comes in bad, we've got a big problem. Major league problem. But if Bitcoin is actually preparing to make a recovery, ladies and gentlemen, we need to see it break that 50 EMA. We need to see it break the moving average, because it's probed it once and come away. Now, let's just make an assumption here. Could this be something that happens with Bitcoin? Possibly. All right. But we've got the problem of the wick, and they like to come back into the wick. That's a problem for me. Major problem. Looking at the bids and the offers are coming in. We could see a little bit more movement tonight in Bitcoin to the upside. Bids are near enough there. Got some bids down here, 10 million at 55.66. Only the CPI data could compromise Bitcoin's move to the upside. So how many of you have been running longs on Bitcoin from this low around 52? How many of you? Catching a knife is scary. Yeah, I guess so. How many hours debate will stream? The debate itself will be on for 90 minutes. It'll be on for 90 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking to hodl for the rest of my life. Will it go up or down? Cheers in advance. You've just answered your question, my bro. Tino, please explain how to read blue and pink candles properly. The blue vector candle itself, so if you're at your chart right now, go and have a look at a blue vector candle. Where is it appearing? Is it appearing at the highs of a move, or is it appearing at the lows of a move? Okay. So in other words, a blue vector candle that appears after price has been dropping to the downside suggests that price is, or activity is starting to increase to the upside, because they like to buy when prices are down. Okay. When you see it appearing at the top side of a move, so price has been moving upwards and upwards, it usually can give us a sign that maybe buying is actually slowing down. The same thing happens with the violet vector candles. If you see a violet vector candle coming into play as price is going down, it could mean that the selling or the marking of price lower and the bids are starting to slow down. Look at NASDAQ. They did exactly the same thing today on the NASDAQ. Go to the 1 minute time frame and look at where our entry was. Our entry point was effectively here. Look, blue vector candle right there. So it's starting to increase. But that's on the 1 minute time frame. I was looking at the 30-second time frame. But look, violet vector candle at the lows, violet vector candle at the lows. My entry point was 18,659. Where was it? Bloody hell, what am I doing here? 30-second time frame. Sorry. What am I doing? Violet vector candle at the lows. Yeah, suggesting that things might be slowing down. Look, the price is not going lower. Blue vector candle at the lows. Blue vector candle at the lows. Green vector candle above the 50 EMA. Yippee-ki-yay to the upside. Take these moves all the time. Don't say they don't do these things, because they do. Bitcoin's a little bit tricky, but Bitcoin does it too. All right? Bitcoin does give you the clues as well. Look at that. 30-second time frame on Bitcoin. On the move to the upside from today. Right? What do you see? Violet vector candle appearing at the low, suggesting that selling is slowing down. The bids are absorbing everything. They could be getting ready to move up. A blue vector candle comes into play at the lows. Blue vector candle right there. It pumps. Comes back down. Red vector candle can't proclaim the actual range and break lower. Blue vector candle, green vector candle, up she goes. And then there's the big pump. So even if you didn't catch it straight away, you could see this collection of green and blue vector candles appearing at the lows of the move. Look left. What do you see? You see the liquidity right there. So even if you were to take trades on this principle here, just here, and say, right, I can see green vectors and blue vectors, happy days. I've got red vector candle over here. Awesome. What's the stock market doing? It's pumping. NASDAQ moves faster than Bitcoin. I see that bad boy. Happy days. Up she goes. Take the trade, man. What can you do? There's nothing more that you can do to the chart or put anything else on the chart other than just saying, look, I've got nothing else to work with other than I've got the candlestick showing me that things are starting to work out to the upside. When you add confluence to confluence to confluence, then you get too much confluence. And then in the end, you won't take the trade. I learned from that mistake when I was watching over 30 oil stocks back in the day before the subprime mortgage crisis came into play. All right. I was looking at CLR. This was one specific stock that I was looking at. It was an oil and exploration company, and it was trading at about $35, $40 a share. And I was like, let me just have a look at this list. So I've got this whole list of oil stocks, and I was paying attention to oil. I spent every single night breaking it down, reading about the company, going on the internet, trying to find out, has anything changed? Tick. I put that to the side. Next stock, next stock, next stock. Whilst I was doing all of that, that CLR stock ended up going to $149 a share, pretty much the same price as oil when it went to $147 a barrel before the subprime mortgage crisis came into play. So they hedged themselves on oil, but I missed out because I was paying attention to too many other stocks. Find your asset, work with it, stick with it, play it. You know? Do that all the time. Stick to one asset. Then you become proficient in it. Then you can then utilize it against another asset. So if you're with Bitcoin all the time and you see Bitcoin ain't really moving, you got Bitcoin trading sideways like this, you want to try and exploit that, go over to the NASDAQ because you'll see the NASDAQ moving all the time. Whilst Bitcoin was doing this consolidation, whilst NASDAQ was moving up from that V-shaped reversal, Bitcoin was coming down. Then Bitcoin started its move to the upside. So it's a bit delayed. You've got to improve the odds of a trade working in your favor by finding an asset that does work well for you. All right. Tino, hey, the vector candles have to be from the wick or the body. It all depends on what you're using it for. Okay. It depends on how you're using it. So if you're taking the midpoint of the vector candle and you have a decent candle size with bare minimum wicks, then you use the high of the wick and the low of the wick. An example would be as follows. Go to the 1 hour time frame and then say to yourself, all right, then let me just have a look at this candlestick right here. Okay. So this is on the logic of recovery of the vector candle, right? You see this here? That's a good body of the candlestick. I'll take the midpoint of that. So get a Fibonacci as such, take the top side of that and go down to that low right there to get the midpoint. What you got to look for is if the midpoint of the candlestick, so if I just bring that here, okay? If the midpoint of the candlestick is showing more vector left behind, then you're going to end up having a bit of a problem with it. Why? Because it might recover. You might think that's the midpoint, but then it could continue higher. And that could be the difference between you getting shaken out of a trade or not. So when you see a candlestick that shows something like this, where there's still too much of a red vector behind or left behind, instead use the actual candlestick body. So then go from the top of the candlestick, go to the bottom of the candlestick body, and then use that as a midpoint of the candlestick. So then you're evens with the candlestick itself. Okay. It's such a terrible reading. I don't know why it's like that. So yeah, I mean, something like this. You see this right here? The midpoint of the candlestick, in principle, take the top side of it, go down to here. There's your midpoint, but it's a wick. You want to know about the vector, then drop it all the way into the vector candle to find out what the midpoint of the candlestick is. And there's your midpoint right there, with the exception of not using the wick, but they will always come back into the wick, especially with a candlestick like that, because that's a stopping volume candle anyways. Okay. Any questions? Tino. Happy birthday. No, mad love to you, man. Happy days. When you see this confluence you're talking about, how do you place your stop loss based on blue vector candles appearing at the lows? You need to look at the nearest area of liquidity, in the sense, what has price done in a previous zone? So for example, if I'm going to use this, I'm going to say to myself that this is a stopping volume candle and price is going to reverse from this range. I'm going to place my trade and factor in the idea that there could be a recovery of the wick. So if I take 50% of the wick right here and say I'm going to take longs inside of this area, I'm going to place my stop outside of the range. Before you do 1%, 2% risk management, you've got to work out if you are giving the asset a chance to really do its thing. See, if you took the trade from that logic, you wouldn't have experienced any drawdown, bare minimum. It wouldn't have gone below the Asian session low because you've put it outside of the range, just in case Bitcoin decides to pull a dirty move, reverse, and go to the upside. Okay? No different to what we did over here on the setups right here. Look at Ethereum. I placed the stop outside of the psychological high. If it hit the psychological high and lower, you would have been stopped out. That's the name of the game. You go back into Ethereum and you can see they didn't hit that zone. Okay? Go back into it. Zoom out. What do you see? They didn't hit that zone. I factored in the idea and look where the recovery was. Green vector candle, go all the way down, mark it across. Look where they reversed from. Look how close it was to the midpoint of that candlestick. The phenomena is there because the idea is that the people that were marking price higher have got an interest to go long in this area again and then see the reversal. In other words, they're bidding out and then reversal to the upside. Ethereum gave us the blue vector candle stop in volume candle. That tells us that they're trying to mark lower, but grabbing orders to then initiate a reversal to the upside. They buy when it drops, they sell when it rises. That's the name of the game. What's the best time to enter a trade? When you have... Listen, there's no such thing as the best time to enter a trade. Every time is the best time to enter a trade because you ain't going to know if your trade's going to work unless you're in a trade. You ain't getting no feedback from nothing. You can't have feedback on a trade without being in a trade. Set your stops, work out where you are happy to lose money. And ladies and gentlemen, you are going to lose money. There's no two ways about it. And anyone says to you, you won't lose money when you use this system. That is the biggest BS on earth. Every system loses money. It's just how much of it are you prepared to lose to the point where you say, not very good now, is it? Any other questions? Tina, why did you stop trading the S&P? It's too slow. It's too slow. I trade the S&P. I trade NASDAQ and S&P together because there are instances when the S&P is at the highs of its profile, yet NASDAQ isn't. So if I see S&P heading towards the top of the profile, which means it's beyond the value area high and it looks like it wants to try and take the high of the day again and keep printing a new high of day, if price is like 10, 15 ticks away from it, but the NASDAQ is not close to it, it tells me that NASDAQ is lagging the S&P. So that means money's going into the S&P because it's moving up. Now, NASDAQ and S&P move together, okay? But S&P has more volume than the NASDAQ, but they're both lightly traded. That's why if you really want to scale back, you trade the US bonds. You know, I trade the ZN futures, the 10-year futures, sorry. And that's when I would really want to be kind to my blood pressure. But then I end up getting frustrated because you're waiting all day, like 6 hours for a 5-tick move. Yeah, that's what happens in the bonds market. But we've got the actual bonds auction happening on Thursday, I think it is. Let me just make sure of that. Yeah, Thursday we got the bonds auction, which will put things into perspective on where we are in the marketplace regarding the US bonds. Tina, can you please share your CoinAnk order flow settings? Yeah. There's nothing magical about this. It's all default. Add footprint. So you go to the indicators list. You go to derivative. You go through these things here, just derivatives and featured indicators, right? Add footprint, factory settings, liquidation levels, factory settings, historical liquidation profile, factory settings, liquidation map, factory settings, liquidity map. I haven't got it activated, but that's the liquidity map. No, thank you. Get rid of that. Order book profile. That's on the right. I'm not interested in that because I can see the order book in principle. I got liquidations over here. And then you got big liquidations, which are these little dots right here. Not interested in that. And we then also have big trades. So big trades are right there. Okay. And then we got large order, which is what we're seeing right here. Okay. The colors of it, just go through each of the settings and change the colors. Down here, I've got aggregated taker buy and sell volume. And then system liquidations long, open interest candle right there. It's all factory settings. There's nothing. I'm just adding indicators that I think are going to be relevant for me. So with the liquidations down below, you can see I'm seeing that there's a lot of short liquidations coming into play. We've already had lots of long liquidations. Now we're going to see the short liquidations coming into action. We got volume today in terms of taker volume. So people are getting busy trading. All right. So that's good news. Speaking of which, if you are trading, get involved with BTCC because these guys let you trade NASDAQ and S&P. All right. And Coinbase and all the other good old stuff on the stock market. And this is where you can effectively hedge yourself in cryptocurrency. You go to the meme section right here, go to tokenized stocks, commodities, and you can trade all of that. And it's great for anyone that is from the US that doesn't want to do KYC or VPN. So go check those guys out. It's in the description for you if you want to have a look. Okay. Tino, how the hell do you stay upbeat? I don't. I'm exhausted, bro. I have a bad shoulder. I sleep backwards at night. It's just. Yes, I know. I do have horse racing commentary. Tino, on your trade on NASDAQ, there are a green vector candle in the 1 minute just before your blue vector. Why did you not take the trade there? I was looking at it from the reason I didn't take that trade is because I didn't take it at that point. And that's only because when you look at the chart itself, if I just bring it up for you right now, okay? When you look at the entry, this is on the 30-second time frame. Look at where price is relative to the moving average, okay? Now, of course, this is hindsight, and for anyone passing through, this I'm talking about is a trade we did today, okay? So that's, I will go watch last night's live stream as well from our personal account, and this is a funded account, but we're just basically getting free money here, all right? But the reason why I didn't take this trade, okay, is because I wanted to see them recover this, and the wick down here was a problem for me, all right? So as I'm watching the order flow, I'm seeing that this green vector candle originally started off as a negative candlestick. It reversed up and became a green vector. So I was reluctant to take the trade. Then I started to see price working its way up, and then I saw this little candlestick right here. In the order flow, there was an instance in the depth of market on the S&P where 500 contracts came in. Now that's a stack on the S&P. 500 contracts came in on the offers. That to me was a sign that there could be an instance where they're going to start marking price up. Today, the S&P was leading the NASDAQ in the sense it was trading higher than the NASDAQ. All right. So that's when I went over to the NASDAQ. I was like, okay, I think we need to start taking a trade right now because that with the solidifying the idea of the V-shaped reversal, and then you got the violet vectors, the red vector candles, and the checklist and all that fun and games. That's why I took the trade on that. And it was away from the 50 EMA as well. Traded above the 5 and 13. Happy days to the upside. Where are the I Sleep Backwards shirts? I don't know. Do we have it? Tina's a grinder. Yes, we are. We are a grinder. For Bitcoin questions, think the New York opening stream is better. Markets are closed at 8 p.m. UTC will be the opening in Asia. Yeah, you know what? I do. Mad love, guys. Thank you so much. Bitcoin next move, please, Tino. Bitcoin's next move. Right. Look, you've got Bitcoin right now on the 1 hour time frame. Okay. And it looks like it's trading very well away from this zone. Okay. The only logical thing for us, and I'm going to say this, all right, and I wish you never tipped it, man. But what you've got to look for when you're trading Bitcoin, going into tonight, you've got this debate. So Bitcoin is more than likely going to be trading sideways up until that point. All right. To say to you, Bitcoin's simply just going to go up would not be reckless, but it could set you up for a little bit of drawdown. Why? Because when the debate comes into play, Bitcoin can shoot up and down. All right. So that with being said, with the CPI data coming out tomorrow, the markets might be a little bit muted. It all depends on what the debate's going to bring. But quite frankly, I don't even think the debate's going to matter. You know, I think as long as Bitcoin can sustain this Asian session range, and quite frankly, anyone that's trading Bitcoin this week really want to be paying attention to Bitcoin in terms of the Asian session high and the Asian session low at the start of the week, because Bitcoin has the capacity and the tendency to come back to the psychological ranges. We've got a week which could be compromised. So this little move up, just make sure you're paying yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. When is the Trump-Harris thing for us in the UK? 2 o'clock in the morning, my friend. Real question, does fried cat taste good? Bro, you're asking me if fried cat tastes good? I wouldn't know, man. You obviously have a friend that knows about it. Ask him. I don't know. I'm just trying to be funny with you, bro. No, unfortunately, I can't tell you what fried cat tastes like, my friend. So blue and violet vectors can be considered as reversal indications. Indications. They are suggestive about intention. Something's changing. Don't go blind into the idea, oh, blue vector candle. Yeah, baby, go long. No. It's an indication that something's brewing. Then you're looking for confirmation. A collection of green and blue vector candles building up. Violet vectors on the downside means it's slowing down. Okay? Do you ever try to go long at the really bottom of a move? No. My bear does not look like a dog. Please. It doesn't. I get really frustrated with that. They're bloody expensive paintings. You told that the pink and blue vectors indicate reversals at bottoms or at tops. Question is how to indicate the bottom or the top. Again, it's a progressive thing. It develops. Just look at the way I've took the NASDAQ trade. I need to see, okay, right. The best way to, rather than trying to catch a falling knife, all right? And the best way to identify a bottom or a top, what reasons do you believe that is starting to come down? Well, the only thing that you're going to be looking at is price. And if price is going to start working its way lower, look left. Do you have any imbalances that price can go back into? Purely on the principle of market profile, that says that when you've got an imbalance in the chart, the market needs to come back to that imbalance. That's auction market theory, okay? When there is a cluster of orders one place and there's not that many orders after the result of that cluster, then you can only assume that price is going to go back to that point. And the only way that you can identify that is if you're paying attention to the movement. Speed of the candles is important. Because if you're just watching Bitcoin, it's trading sideways and nothing's really happening, what information are you getting? Should I go long? Should I go short? Then you start seeing green, blue vector candles appearing at the lows. Price has been dropping to the downside. All right. So what does that mean? Well, it means that things could be changing to start marking up. How am I going to know that's the case? Take the trade. You ain't going to know. You're going to sit there like a wet fish watching it, and then you're going to miss the move. Then you're going to enter at the late time. And then the time you enter is the time when they retrace. And then you get frustrated. Then you go short because you're angry with yourself. And then you happen to get caught in the rise or retrace continuation. And then you end up just losing your mind. Are you checking no bottom or top wick candles on your chart? If you check the Bitcoin 4-hour time frame, you can find a lot of no bottom wick candles. Yes, sometimes I look at that. Your bear is 100% Rottweiler. Oh, God. Tino, can you send us the link to the bank losses? Oh, that one. All you need to do is just go on to type in this into Google. Type FDIC unrealized losses. Okay. And it will bring that up for you, my friend. If I give you this link, it's like it looks like the Matrix on this link. All right. What's your thoughts on scaling the VWAP like for 10 to 12 ticks? S&P futures. Saw a dude doing it on Bookmap. Curious of your thoughts. Scaling the VWAP. Scalping the VWAP for 10, 12 ticks, S&P futures. Quite frankly, I wouldn't scalp. All right, look. When you're scalping the VWAP, especially on NASDAQ. Okay, so let's just bring this up into perspective. All right. So this is the 30-minute time frame. Let me just go into a smaller time frame on the NASDAQ. When I'm scalping NASDAQ, I'm only trading off tick charts. I'm not doing anything else. Where's my ticks? Here we go. Tick chart 1,597, 1,600 ticks. Okay. And this is going to take forever. Come on. Here we go. So, oh man, there we go. Put that VWAP. Okay, look. 10, 12 ticks. I mean, this move from here all the way up to that move that I traded was about a nearly 150 tick move on NASDAQ, all right? But S&P, you can grab 10 to 15 ticks on the S&P only when the NASDAQ is moving, all right? And like I said today in the Discord, we're going to have a rotation. And that's what we did have in the first half of the morning. That's why I was reluctant to trade my personal account, because I was just like, oh, I'm not liking this. And then I walked away and it came back to the chart. I was like, oh my God. Look at this. We got a setup. VWAP drop, lows of the profile for the day, low value. Okay. Happy days. Trade back into the point of control. Okay. So use the point of control and the VWAP as ways that you can trade away from and towards. When you're trying to work out if they're going to move from that point, use the vector candles to suggest that. Because even if I didn't have if I wasn't looking at the hybrid system, okay, I use the hybrid system for reference, but I'm not always looking at it because I'm looking at this, okay? You can see from my trade today, I've got exo charts up on one of the ultras, then hybrid system is above. I use the hybrid system to map direction. I'm not looking at candlesticks. I'm looking at orders. I'm going into these orders, trying to understand what are these orders here, this order, this order. How is it that this candlestick right here came down and then popped back up? That influx of orders down here pushed it back up again. That could be a reason to go long. You know what I mean? And this is where I'm working with futures data as well. So short coin, thank you very much, my friend. Okay. No, don't use Fibonacci's. What should we expect from Bitcoin this bull run? 80K. That's what I'm looking for, Bitcoin. 80K. Hopefully by September the 18th. I'm standing to that until the September the 18th comes, and then we'll have a conversation if it happens or not. That's the truth. Okay. With that, how many screens do you use? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 ultra wide screens, 49-inch ultra wides. Okay. And I've got depth of markets going across them and exo charts and the hybrid. And I'm literally just doing this nonstop. It's a pain in the back, but hey. When Bitcoin is dumping, can I long McDonald's stock? On that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed tonight's live stream, mad love and respect, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want more on the hybrid system, check out the Platinum membership on tradersreality.com. It's pinned to the top of the chat. Have yourselves a good night, gang. Mad love. Peace.